Well, good morning and welcome to the Friday morning edition of Frankly Speaking here. I got my second mic up on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live and proudly from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning, and we have a lot to cover today. I don't even know where to begin. We've got updates on COVID. We've got updates on the Trump hush money trial, the debate. And of course, and I'd love to hear your opinion on Joe Biden claiming executive privilege against anyone hearing those audio tapes of his interview. We'll be talking about that as well. A little bit later on in the program, during the Steuben Senior Services Fund section of the program, we'll be talking to the Salvation Army of Corning. Our good friends from the Salvation Army have a very special event coming up today, and we're going to talk about it during the interview. In full disclosure, we recorded the interview yesterday. So to clear up any kind of confusion of the interview, the event is today. And what it is, it's Donut Day. During World War I and World War II, Salvation Army had I guess you call them a group of lassies is what they call them, that handed out donuts to soldiers. And they celebrate each year by handing out donuts. So today, right here on Market Street in Centerway, if you're around from 11 to 1, stop in, get a free donut, some coffee. It'll be a fun time. We're going to hear all about it coming up a little bit later on in the program. Okay, what is going on, just quickly, and I'd love to hear your opinion on it, with this kind of, and I hate this term, the media uses it too much, but the Garland hearing turning into chaos. So AOC, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Jasmine Crockett got into trading barbs during this hearing. I don't think it's really a good look for anyone. The hearing on whether to move forward with the contempt resolution, which we'll talk about later on, against Attorney General Merrick Garland, spiraled out of control after Greene brought up the daughter of the Manhattan judge presiding over Trump's trial. She said at the hearing, "I'd like to know if any of the Democrats on this committee are employing Judge Merchant's daughter." That's when Crockett demanded to know, what does this have to do with Merrick Garland? Do you know what we're here for? So Marjorie Taylor Greene shoots back and says, "I think you know what you're here for. I think your fake eyelashes are messing up what you're reading." I don't know. I know we've had kind of mixed reactions in the past on this program about Marjorie Taylor Greene. I think the term firebrand is appropriate. I think there's times where she kind of rallies the troops, and there's times like this where she maybe got a little too aggressive by half. I'm not really sure. I mean, it almost seems like a lunchroom squabble, doesn't it? Bringing up the eyelashes, the fake eyelashes. I'm not sure. I don't know if it's the best look. I pose the question to you. That's when chaos erupted. Jamie Raskin, said, "That's beneath even you, Miss Greene." That's when the gavel starts going crazy. Now, AOC decided she needed a piece of the action, and she said, that is absolutely unacceptable," she shouted. "How dare you attack the physical appearance of another person?" Some have called it body shaming, which I'm not really sure the exact definition of body shaming, but I guess eyelashes are a part of the body. Then Greene, I don't know. I don't know what to think about all this, folks. I mean, I don't have the video to show you. But Greene said, "Are your feelings hurt? That wasn't any kind of impersonation. I'm just reading the transcript. AOC said, this is so uncomfortable to even read. AOC says, "Oh, girl, baby girl, don't even play." So Greene responded by basically copying that sentence and saying, "Oh, really, baby girl? I don't think so." Now, the Georgia Republican, Marjorie Taylor Greene, agreed to strike that from the record, but would not apologize. She said, "I'm not apologizing." And then challenging AOC to a debate, AOC firing back, I think it's pretty self-evident. Green responding, yeah, you don't have enough intelligence. There was a lot of groans in the chamber, and I kind of understand it. I mean, this seems like an awkward place to be at this moment. When things appear to be settling down, Crockett took the mic and fired back at Green. Because why? Why not? Why not keep it going? I'm just curious, Crockett said, to better understand your ruling. If someone on this committee then starts talking about somebody's bleached blonde, bad-built, butch body, that would not be engaging in personalities, correct? That's where the body shaming begins. But that term was thrown around a lot with this. So what starts off as fake eyelashes turns into Crockett taking the dig at Marjorie Taylor Greene, saying, again, if someone starts talking about somebody's bleached blonde, bad-built, butch body, that would not be engaging in personalities, correct? And that's what Comer says. A what now? The chairman seemed a little bit at wit's end at this point. I have no idea what you said. Now, Crockett's shot at Green appeared to amuse Raskin, whose eyes widened as he looked around the room and tried to hide his smile. Yeah, I mean, I guess to the point, where's AOC coming to the defense of Marjorie Taylor Greene at that point? I would say, when back in school, when insults were being thrown around and one wasn't bad, and then the other person kind of drops the bomb and goes, really? Too far? That seems to be too far to me, but calm down, Representative Ann Paula Lunas told Crockett. That's when Crockett, again, starting this all back up, no, don't tell me to calm down because you all talk noise and then you can't take it. What talk noise? With everybody involved in this, just the kind of language that you wouldn't think would be used in the, well, I shouldn't say you shouldn't think would be used in the halls of Congress. I'm sure there's been a lot worse said. Because if I come and talk blank about her, you're all going to have a problem, she continued. Okay. And of course, that is being played throughout the media. I don't really, I mean, definitely coming back in with that kind of the insults there. It just very interesting. I don't know why I started the program like that, but I thought I would get your reaction to the kerfuffle. Maybe we'll say that. Seems like the kind of place I would feel very uncomfortable being at, watching this play out, just in general, on all sides of this issue. But let's get into something a little heavier, as on Friday, we cover a lot of issues, kind of go through some of them very quickly. NIH finally, after all this time, admits that taxpayer funding was used in that gain-of-function research. The thing we couldn't talk about during COVID, the thing that made you a conspiracy theorist, because obviously it came from some market, some wet market, and not the coronavirus research lab right next door. Representative Debbie Lesko asked the National Institute of Health Principal Deputy Director Lawrence Tabak, did NIH fund gain-of-function research at the Wuhan Institute of Virology through Manhattan-based nonprofit EcoHealth Alliance? Tabak answered back what we've known but could never be said. Quote, it depends on your definition of gain-of-function research. If you're speaking about the generic term, yes, we did. Now, this is more than 4 years of evasion from federal public health officials, including Tabak himself, by the way, and, of course, Dr. Anthony Fauci, about the controversial research practice that modifies viruses to make them more infectious. Tabak added that, quote, this is research. The generic term gain of function is research that goes on in many, many labs around the country. It is not regulated. And the reason it's not regulated is it poses no threat or harm to anybody. Excuse me? I'm sure there's many that would disagree. Dr. Bryce Nichols, a professor of genetics at Rutgers University and co-founder of the pandemic oversight group Biosafety Now, told the Post the exchange was two people talking past each other. Tabak was engaging in the usual obfuscation and semantic manipulation that is so frustrating and pointless. Instead of addressing this directly, Tabak launched into a useless response about how gain of function encompasses many types of experiments. Yeah, still trying to cover it up, still trying to ignore what we all knew from very early on. And the New York Post does a great job of their denials, putting together their denials in this piece. Nichols said no credible scientist still believes this. In fact, the wet market theory has even been refuted by the world's leading coronavirus expert, Ralph Baric, in his testimony from January. It's pure insanity to continue to delegate responsibility for risk-benefit analysis of research that poses an existential threat to humanity to the scientists that will perform the work in their institutions. We just had a devastating pandemic likely caused by the creation of a pathogen with enhanced pandemic potential in a lab, and yet scientists want the public to trust them that they can police themselves. That's just total and complete nonsense. Yes, they want, but remember, these are the people that we were and are still told that we need to trust. Very interesting. I've got one other part on this really quickly when we come back from break, and then we're going to move on. We've got college protests. I would love to hear your opinion. Oh, thank you for the waves. I'd love to hear your opinion on the chaos at the hearing yesterday with the name calling and the body shaming. I'd also love to know what you think about Biden using executive privilege not to have that interview released. We're going to talk about that as well. That and much, much more. So stay with us. We are just getting started here on Frankly Speaking. And we are back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Coming up in the next hour, during the Stu Ben Senior Services Fund section of our program, we're going to be talking to the Salvation Army, Major Anita Stewart and Marlene Swingle. They're going to join us for the conversation on Donut Day. Get yourself a free donut and a cup of coffee right here in Centerway from 11 to 1 for the tradition of the Salvation Army. You'll hear all about it coming up in a little bit. Comments from viewers. Perhaps Marjorie Taylor Greene needs to practice judicial procedure shaming rather than body shaming. Good point. I think her frustration with everything caused it. I think so. I mean, I think you can see the frustration with everyone involved in that chaos. I just don't think, first of all, it's what the media now focuses on and kind of the pettiness. Well, they don't focus on the pettiness from all sides, but definitely they'll focus on it from Marjorie Taylor Greene. To me, it's like if you're debating someone and it goes to the name calling and it goes to kind of the aggressive repeats and things like that. It doesn't look as if you're winning the argument. I'm not sure if that was also the right place, though. I'm not sold on this completely. I'm not sure if that was the right place to bring up the judge in Trump's trial, because it was a very important hearing, and I think that needs to be highlighted. That his daughter works for those consulting firms for Democrats. I think that is an important point. But again, sometimes when it's so out of nowhere, I think it also becomes it maybe looks more like desperation than it does having the conversation that needs to be had. You can agree with me. You can disagree with me. I want to read your comments. So please, I'd love to hear you out one way or the other. Back to COVID for just a moment. The New York Post editorial board says that COVID-19, which killed 1.1 million Americans and destroyed the lives and livelihoods of millions more, is a man-made virus that escaped from a Chinese lab partly funded by the United States government. Even today, you're not supposed to say that, even though it's the only plausible scenario. Yes, they've done a wonderful job of making people self-censor and censor what they've said. It almost cost, not that I care one way or the other, but Jon Stewart, his career, when he went on Stephen Colbert and had the audacity to suggest it wasn't from a wet market, that it was from a lab, just almost at the exact location that they tracked it down to, just feet away, that happened to be studying this exact thing. Boy, remember Stephen Colbert just losing it. You can't say that. No, fact checkers will rush in to claim that eminent scientists deny this, which is because those scientists have too much invested in money and time in their own beliefs to admit the truth. But as Congress continues to probe, that truth is coming out little by little, and the lies are being exposed. China tried to deflect blame immediately by saying the virus supposedly began in a wet market of animal meat in Wuhan. Dr. Anthony Fauci repeatedly argued it, quote, evolved in nature and then jumped species in the spring of 2020. Again, these are the people we're supposed to trust. Listen to the scientists, believe the scientists. Since then, both long investigations and government reports have concluded that the virus is man-made. Fauci grudgingly admitted it could be true. Anyone who questioned this claim, including the New York Post, were censored online in 2020. And that's been another part of this censorship. So when I say self-censorship, this wasn't even just self. This was the social media and others censoring places like the Post that had the audacity to try to get to the truth of what caused the pandemic where over 1.1 million Americans died. That's Americans. We're not even talking throughout the world. Why was it censored? The reason? A statement published in Lancet by 27 scientists calling it a, quote, conspiracy theory. We now know that statement was drafted by Peter Daszak, president of EcoHealth Alliance, the company working on research in the Wuhan lab. He was just trying to cover his own complicity. All signs point to a lab leak. The only reason we can't say it conclusively is because China has been allowed to destroy, remember that, destroy all evidence. Again, it ties in with what we've been talking about with China as China meets with Russia the last few days. We've talked about China, Russia, Iran, and the threat that they pose, trying to be world superpowers, for lack of a better word. So keep this all in mind as we tie them in together. Scientists sometimes experiment with viruses, making them easier to catch or more deadly as a way to determine what might happen or what vaccines may be needed. But in May of 2021, Fauci stated unequivocally that the U.S. has not ever and does not now fund gain-of-function research in the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Trouble with that word. Apologize. On Thursday, NIH Deputy Director Lawrence Tabak directly contradicted that. We mentioned that quote earlier, saying, yeah, we did do gain of function, but it's perfectly safe. On cue, the National Institute of Health has changed the definition of the term on its website to make it sound benign. So they have now, just to continue this cover-up, changed the definition, of gain of function research. But the fact of the matter is that it isn't benign. EcoHealth was specifically working in China because such work was not allowed in the United States. What researchers were doing with coronavirus was very dangerous. And while there may be a scientific debate about whether such inquiries are worthwhile, deadly viruses have leaked from Chinese labs before. It is the height of irresponsibility for the U.S. to be involved. The Heritage Foundation has called the cover-up of the origins of COVID, quote, the lie of the century, and the New York Post agrees. This is a scandal of colossal scale, one that requires a complete overhaul of the entire National Institute of Health. They lied about a weapon that devastated our country. They can't be allowed to get away with it. That's from the New York Post, just to tie in. Here's a comment from a viewer. I need new conspiracy theories. All my old ones have come true. That's funny. Fauci, another comment from a different viewer. Fauci should be tried for crimes against humanity for going against American law relating to this type of experiments, and Obama knew it and pushed it. Thank you. Keep those comments coming in. You see the number on the bottom of the screen. If you are new to the show, you can text or leave a voicemail. I'll try to do my best to get all the information out that you share with me. Okay, we're going to talk about quickly, and this is just a few quick things about the continued protests on college campuses tied in with our policy on Israel. We also have a lot about the debate. Obviously, this week has been the big topic has been the potential. See, I'm still holding on to my conspiracy theory. Potential for presidential debates, one coming up on, was it June 27th? We're going to take a look at both sides. Some saying, well, this is the best thing that could ever happen to Biden. Others saying this is the best thing that could happen to Trump. We're going to take a look at that, but I'd love to have you weigh in on that or any issue that you'd like to weigh in on. But right now, we've got to take a break, and then we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. You're watching Frankly Speaking, and I really appreciate that. We got a lot of waves coming in. I appreciate that as well. A couple comments from viewers. Gain of function is not safe. There are millions affected to prove it. If it's proved that the lab caused all these deaths, they should be held accountable. It needs to be treated like a nuclear bomb had gone off because it had a very similar effect of one. And another comment, the virus arms race must be stopped. Well, it is very concerning when you think about China's involvement, obviously, and you look at the destruction of the evidence. And we talk about so often on this program, the China, Russia, Iran alliance and what that can mean towards the future. But let's go quickly to college campuses, because why not? Just to show you a little bit what we're dealing with, Columbia faculty, they passed a no confidence resolution against President Shafiq. Now, why? Because of her horrible handling of the protests? Because she allowed them to grow and become more destructive, more intimidating to Jewish students, more aggressive, more anti-Semitic? Is that the reason? No, the reason is because she had the audacity to get police involved. Now, you know my thoughts on that. She gave horrible testimony in Congress, and I believe that's why the next day she called the cops. She was trying to play it both ways. That backfired. Then the protest grew. Then she called cops again. Anyway, so again, the faculty, the grown-ups in the room, giving her a no confidence vote, which I think we could all give a no confidence vote to President Shafiq, but not for the reasons you would give her a no confidence vote. Giving her that vote because she had an unprecedented assault on students' rights. I don't believe they're referencing the rights of the Jewish students. This coming from the New York Times. They said she had violated the fundamental requirements of academic freedom and shared governance and engaged in an unprecedented assault on students' rights. The move, while largely symbolic, underscores the anger at Dr. Shafiq. The no confidence resolution was introduced by the campus chapter of the American Association of University Professors, a professional faculty organization. Of the 709 professors who voted, 65% were in favor of the resolution and 29% were opposed. 6 abstained. Interesting. They particularly criticized Dr. Shafiq's decision to call the police. There it all is. That's what it boils down to. Call the police onto campus to clear a pro-Palestinian student encampment on April the 18th, even after the executive committee of the University Senate had unanimously told her not to do it. So as these students were breaking laws, getting destructive, yelling anti-Semitic things, pro-Hamas things, intimidating fellow students, Jewish students and others, that was all okay. The line that was crossed, she was doing fine up until then. The line that was crossed is when she decided to get police involved to break up the lawlessness. So remember, that's not learning any kind of optics lesson. Faculty and the quote-unquote grown-ups in the room at the university showing yet again where they stand, what they believe. Now, John Stossel, and I'll pose this question to you. John Stossel believes this. It hasn't necessarily been an attack on freedom of speech like what was kind of expressed in that resolution, but it was more of the potential for it. John Stossel saying the worldwide drive to clamp down on free speech is doomed to backfire. And he goes through some other, unrelated to this, attacks on free speech. But then he said, our First Amendment says Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech. Should that River to the Sea House bill become law, because there is a bill being proposed that will, I don't want to say outlaw, but they will define River to the Sea as anti-Semitic. Where's the exact? Here it is. Should the chant be illegal? The House of Representatives just voted to make it illegal at universities. Both Republicans and Democrats voted for the bill. So he said, should that become law, it would be something new. Americans have mixed feelings about free speech. A Real Clear Politics poll reports that 61% believe government should restrict hateful posts. Now that's troubling. It really is. Will the party in power get to decide what's hateful? And I agree with John Stossel on that. Where I disagree is what these protests symbolize. And he said, I agree, it's good that so far American police say their campus arrests are for trespassing or property damage, not words. I don't agree with what most of the demonstrators say, but I'll defend their right to say it. And I think from the beginning we've made that very clear, at least here, that obviously we are for free speech. And I even said I thought it got ridiculous that we all had to do that disclaimer so often, because obviously we're for free speech. But when you start talking about destruction, when you start talking about trespassing, when you start talking about, while trespassing, making Jewish students feel uncomfortable, not be able to go to class, shutting down classes, because of these illegal protest tactics, because of course they did not have the permits, they did not have permission to be there, trespassing, etc. That's where the problem is, not the free speech. Peaceful protests are fine. I don't know how you could watch what happened and call them peaceful. So I will pose that to you. Do you think that this is troubling, what's coming down because of these protesters, that there is an attack on free speech, like John Stossel is suggesting? And I do believe there is an attack on free speech throughout the, unfortunately, country and throughout the world, in different avenues and different ways that they do it. Hence the censorship that we were talking about earlier about COVID, or the censorship we see online. But I thought that was kind of maybe a devil's advocate, maybe question. And I'd like to hear what you have to say. Now, Morehouse College, the president there says that graduation might be halted completely if there are disruptions during President Biden's speech. What we won't allow, said President David A. Thomas, is disruptive behavior that prevents the ceremony or services from proceeding in a manner that those in attendance can partake and enjoy. And you say, okay, that's reasonable. Clamp down on this disruption. That's fair. Let these students that graduated have a chance to enjoy this really important part in their life. But this is where I think is interesting. So, for example, prolonged shouting down of the president as he speaks. I have also made a decision that we will also not ask police to take individuals out of commencement in zip ties. If faced with that choice, I will cease the ceremonies on the spot if we were to reach that position. So if it gets to a point where they're so disruptive, but that's interesting. And I'm not sure how this works, because obviously the police have not been able to come on these campuses until they're called, because it is private property. So in this case, can you dictate, or in any of the cases, can you dictate to the police, hey, we want you there, we want you for security, but you cannot do X, Y, and Z. And in this case, you cannot escort people out of the commencement in zip ties. Because let's face it, there's going to be a lot of students this is across the country that want to be escorted out in zip ties. They want that optics. And you're telling me there's not going to be a lot of students that want the optics and the media attention and the social media attention of shouting down the president of the United States while he gives a speech at their commencement? I mean, as I've been saying from the beginning, the narcissism of these protesters, that's why we knew there'd be so much disruption at the commencement ceremonies, because that proves right then and there to all your fellow students and to all their parents and your parents and all their loved ones that you are the one that cares the most about this pro-Hamas cause. You're bigger and better than the person that just happened to encamp for a couple weeks outside. You took it a step further, as we saw the other day with the student from Columbia ripping up her diploma. This happens with protests quite often, where one person starts, but the other person wants to get more attention. So they do something a little more outlandish, and it continues to grow and grow, where you have, I think eventually you'll see the president shouted down at a commencement, but because I think he has a few he has to speak at, but where you'll see more outrageous things done for the more attention to show that you care the most, that you're the leader of this movement. And we saw it early on, just to give you kind of like maybe a weaker example of it, when there was the protests during the national anthem, where Colin Kaepernick took a knee. And the next person that wanted to start in took a knee and raised a fist. And then the next, it was always continuing to grow, different ways to be, for lack of better terms, center of attention, like we see here, where that person protested by wearing zip ties while getting their diploma. Well, I'm going to do that, but I'm going to take a step further and rip up my diploma. And then the next person says, well, I'm going to take it a step further and boo the president until I get escorted out in zip ties. And if I can have the whole ceremony ended because of my actions, that's the person that cares the most about this pro-Hamas cause. We have a little bit more on this, very little bit more. One opinion piece I just want to kind of share with you, tied in with Israel. We're going to get away from that. I've got some immigration issues. Also, the executive privilege that Biden invoked to keep that interview hush-hush. Do you think also, I thought about this when I first saw the article, Tim Scott hinting that he's kind of on the short list for VP. I like Tim Scott, in full disclosure. I like Tim Scott a lot. I interviewed him in the past. I really like him. I don't think it's good hinting towards that. I don't think Trump likes the attention being taken away from his announcement. So I'm wondering if that's a positive thing or if that was ultimately a negative thing for his futures. So I'll pose that question to you as well. But first, we've got to take a break, and then we will be back with Frankly Speaking with some comments after this. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking. A couple of comments from viewers, and we're going to wrap up our discussion on these college campus protests for today. Quote from a viewer: I find it very telling that the same groups funding this chaos on campuses also donate to the Democrats. That should tell people something. Yes. And yet, faculty supporting these protests. We've talked about the bias on college campuses, indoctrination so often, where faculty and staff are not. You're not seeing too many conservatives, are you? Far different reaction, and I'm not sure what this means exactly, so if you could explain. Far different reaction from the Democrats about these protests than they had for Seattle, Portland, and many other cities destroyed during Black Lives Matter protests. And then another comment from a different viewer: demonization of your fellow man is always how our rights are abridged. This is why I always fall back on fundamental principles. Deep state is scared. Networking is the only hope for liberty to prevail. Thank you. Okay. Douglas Murray talked about something with these protests that I had kind of been highlighting, and it's the COVID masks. Everybody's masked up, right? And to me, it's historically what terroristic groups do: cover their face, hide their identity. You see it, probably the best known example, Ku Klux Klan with the masks. Remember when we were all told to mask up, Douglas Murray said? Well, perhaps it's time for us to change that rule. How about masks off? Sure, he says, for some people in New York City, he gets it. A few have I like how he puts this. A few have underlying health conditions like morbid obesity or different bodiness or whatever we're allowed to call what we used to call overweight. But how to explain to all the young people, particularly the young protesters who seem to be so unnaturally scared of COVID? Why are they always so scared of COVID when the cameras come around? Perhaps the students at Columbia and other campuses really do have a mortal fear of COVID, in which case, I'm going to set your mind at ease. New York State no longer has a COVID-19 problem. College-age Americans are more likely to die by homicide, suicide, or being hit by a bus than they are through complications caused by COVID. So rejoice, oh brave protesters, Douglas Murray writes. The masks can come off. And yet, with something like inevitability, there's one thing you can predict about protesters in New York today, which is that anytime they are protesting, they'll be strangely scared of COVID. At the height of the Black Lives Matter protests in 2020, you might say, okay, there's an excuse for that. There's nothing like the fear of COVID to keep you cautious as you smash up a store. Indeed, I'm sure that it was always perfectly natural that people swiping a set of sneakers for social justice would at the same time mask up to protect their respiratory system. But why is it that in 2024, today's brave protesters in New York are nearly always wearing a mask? Why should it be that students making their demands for ceasefires in the Middle East and humanitarian aid at home have to holler their demands through a piece of cloth? What is it about the outside troublemakers who come into this city's campuses that makes them, at one and the same time, brave enough to cause disruption to students and citizens and yet terribly hypochondriac over COVID? Well, I would like to suggest a reason. It has nothing to do with CDC data or vaccination rates, nothing. The reason is that they are bullies. And like all bullies, they are at the same time terrible cowards. Despite pretending that they are world-beating revolutionaries, the protesters who now push people in this city around are trying to keep their identities hidden. Perhaps it's because they are professional agitators, drafted in by a range of left-wing grassroots organizations to cause trouble. That is certainly what many people, including the police, believe. Perhaps these people want to cover their face because the media in this country might just notice that the same professional revolutionaries tend to turn up wherever there is trouble, almost as if they're paid to do so. Presumably, they want to keep their identities hidden as much as possible. But what about the students at Columbia and elsewhere who want to sit in their tents and bravely protest about something they don't know anything about? Maybe, just maybe, they too are not actually afraid of COVID. What they're afraid of are the opinions they're espousing. Yeah, if you're so courageous, if you're so confident in your beliefs, why do they hide their face? Because at the end of the day, they want to get a job with their degree. They want to have their fun protesting and yelling anti-Semitic things, pro-Hamas things, but they also want to think towards their future. Because they know at some level that bullying other students and shrieking about things they don't know about is not a good look. They want to intimidate people, but they never want to be intimidated themselves. And isn't that a great line? They don't want to be intimidated. We can intimidate you. You can't intimidate us. That has been the reaction. And to that piece yesterday that I had where these universities are rewarding the students for being so obnoxious, for being so aggressive, by giving in to their demands. But at the end of the day, I like that. They want to intimidate people, but they never want to be intimidated themselves. And I would point back to the Antifa protests as well, where they covered up their face, another terroristic organization. So Douglas Murray has a suggestion. At all future protests in New York State, let's have a mask-off policy. The KKK was the last organization in America that was so proud of their beliefs that their members covered their faces during protests. Now, students for jihad are doing the same job, for strangely similar reasons, if you think about it. So let's demand they take the hoods off too. Oops, sorry, I meant masks. I thought that was a really good point. And, it is funny because you see the pictures, and it is all masks, as if we were back in 2020. So just ending on that note of our comments on the protests, I thought that was a really good piece. You can find it for yourself at the New York Post, Douglas Murray. Tying that in with the Israel policy, did you see that National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan this week, and I think we mentioned it earlier, said no president has stood stronger with Israel than Joe Biden. Now we know that is a joke. He's withheld munitions. He has falsely accused Israel of indiscriminate bombing, calling its response to the October 7th massacre over the top and suggesting that it violated international law. He has halted the weapons to help Israel to fight for their survival and demanded that it not pursue terrorists in Rafah. But you've got to remember, and we know who, let's face it, no matter what you think of Trump, if you're a supporter or not, Trump was very strong, if not the strongest president with Israel. Stood stronger, I should say. Strongest, had the best relationship. But I'll continue. Sullivan, the man who said no president has stood stronger with Israel than Joe Biden, Jake Sullivan, was also the man who said, and I quote, "The Middle East region is quieter today than it has been in 2 decades. Quieter today than it has been in 2 decades, just days before October 7th. Now, Israel Defense Chief has warned that operations in Rafah will intensify as commando units are deployed. Israel Defense Minister warned that the battles in Rafah will intensify and more troops will be deployed after a commando unit entered the city in southern Gaza. So there's your updates on that. We've got to take another short break. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, we will be. What did I do with my... I can't remember what number we're on. We'll be right back. And we are back with Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio. A couple comments from viewers. The idea here is that the June being the new earliest debate, and the reason the debate is that early is to show Biden is done, so in convention, Democrats can nominate Michelle Obama to run. Laugh, but anything can happen in today's world. Thank you for that comment. I know there's a few people in this audience that believe that at the end of the day it will not be Biden. Michelle Obama has signaled that she's not interested, but then we heard from, who was it? Cindy Adams, kind of the gossip queen at New York Post, saying that she heard rumbling. So, hey, keep the comments coming in. I love to hear them. Tim Scott, this is from a different viewer. Tim Scott would be a great choice for Trump's VP. Quote, a descendant of enslaved people, the second son of a single mother. I know he has an amazing background, amazing story. He is also a teetotaler, like Trump. Listen, I've been saying from the beginning, I like Tim Scott. I get nervous, and what that's in reference to is he was on, what program was it? Newsmax with Eric Bolling. And Scott said to Bolling, I hear there's a debate in July. If you're the guy, oh yeah, and I think that text said June, but it is July. I hear there's a debate in July. If you're the guy moderating, maybe I'll be talking to you. We'll see what happens. Is what he told Eric Bolling, kind of a wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Maybe I'm going to be the VP nod. I don't know if hear me out. I don't know. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I misspoke. June 27th, because I keep wanting to think it's 26th. June 27th is the first debate. So that the comment from the viewer is right. July, the one that Representative Scott, or Senator Scott, is referencing here is the vice presidential debate in July. So kind of hinting towards the VP nod. Bowling then asked Scott point blank if he thinks he'll beat Trump's number 2. Scott laughed and said, we'll see, we'll see. So I think, I know he's having a little fun there, but Trump doesn't like the attention taken away from him on things like this, on announcements. I don't think so. I don't know if this might have moved him down rather than helped him. That's just my personal opinion. I have not seen that anywhere else. That's what the first thing I thought when I saw that statement. Now, there has been no agreement, as far as I'm aware, unless something happened as of late last night, where they've confirmed that there will be a VP debate, because the president will not agree, it sounds like, to more than the 2 debates. And then they said, well, how about the VP debate? And we'll give you a VP debate, and it'll be same rules. And Trump has not responded to that. We're going to talk about the debates in the next hour. Did you know that, just speaking of Biden, 1.7 million gotaways have sneaked into the U.S. under Biden? More than in previous decade combined. That's gotaways. That's no record. More than 1.7 million migrant getaways have illegally sneaked over the southern border without being apprehended during the Biden administration. That's coming from Border Patrol data. The huge number of gotaways, defined as those who have been spotted by agents or via video cameras but not caught, is higher than the 1.4 million recorded in the entire decade from 2010 to 2020. We know immigration is the number 1 issue to voters, and that's why Schumer is moving to give cover to Biden and Democrats with that bill, trying to put it on Republicans' shoulders, because they know that the Republicans won't support it. So then they can go back out and campaign like they did in November and say, no, look, Republicans don't care. He's going to resurrect a bipartisan border bill for a vote likely next week, Axios said. Republicans are expected to overwhelmingly vote against the bill, which would provide new tools to restrict access to asylum when border numbers surge. You've got to remember, this is not, the media is going to sell it as being the perfect bill, bipartisan bill, perfect bill. Everybody agrees on it. Best thing that could ever happen to the border. Not the case. What it means to negotiate in instances like this is it means Republicans have to cave in on everything. And then maybe we'll say you negotiated. So their line of attack is, and you're going to hear a lot about this, is they're not voting on it because of Trump. Trump doesn't want to win for Biden. So what Schumer is doing is saying we've got to get ahead of this as we near November. This is the number 1 issue for voters. And let's face it, Biden has a dismal record with the open porous borders, with the gotaways. So I just wanted to pass that along quickly. We are going to talk about in the next hour the White House using the executive privilege to block the release of the special counsel's recording. That's coming up in a little bit. I'm going to take my last break of the hour. So stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. And we are back, wrapping up the first hour of Frankly Speaking here on Big Fox, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Coming up in the next hour, we'll be talking with Major Anita Stewart and Marlene Swingle from the Corning Salvation Army as they are celebrating Donut Day today. And that's during the Steuben Senior Services Fund section of our program. Now, the panel did pass the resolution to hold Merrick Garland in contempt of Congress. As you are aware, Garland defied a final warning in April to comply with a subpoena for the recordings of Biden's interview with her. That is the interview where her characterized Biden in the report as an elderly man with a poor memory. Republicans were undeterred, saying we will move forward with its markup of a resolution and report recommending to the House of Representatives that Attorney General Garland be held in contempt of Congress for defying a lawful subpoena. The White House is asserting executive privilege over the recordings, but has already waived privilege by releasing the transcript of the interview. So yes, Biden kind of quietly using that executive privilege. They defended that. Well, Karine Jean-Pierre defended it, the White House press secretary, saying, and obviously the letter from the White House counsel laid out for reasons about the concerns of being used for political purposes. But that seems to imply that the White House is concerned that these could be politically damaging, a reporter asked Karine Jean-Pierre. So yeah, so you're doing it because it could be used for political purposes. So there is something there. I mean, this is fanning the flames of conspiracy theories, right? So why not release it? Jean-Pierre defended the decision. I think the second piece of this, too, to know is that Attorney General made it clear that law enforcement files like these need to be protected, claiming that Biden made that decision at the request of the Attorney General. So it was actually Merrick Garland who said, don't release these tapes. So just want to make the second point that I made really clear. The Department of Justice and the White House's counsel's office has provided extensive written letters, as you all know. I'm sure some of you have read up on this issue, and like I said, that you have seen. And so when it comes to anything further, any specifics, obviously I would refer you to my colleagues at the White House counsel's office. Man, she is tough to read, isn't she? Her statements as press secretary. Twisting herself up into a pretzel, pressing that the determination was made at the request of the Attorney General, who wanted to make sure that the law enforcement files like these must be protected. So again, the Attorney General calling for the executive privilege to be used. And we know it could be used for political purposes. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit more about this in the next hour. Then we're going to move on to debates, because they kind of go hand in hand, don't they? Trump saying he wants 2-hour debates, wants to make sure they're standing the whole time. I think setting the bar to where they are hoping that what her witnessed during that interview will be what the American people witnessed during the debate. So we're going to talk about that. We have a great Stu Benz Senior Services Fund interview with the Salvation Army coming up in the next hour. Also, I would like to highlight on Monday's show, I'm very excited about this. We've been talking about the Stu Benz Senior Services Fund a lot, but we're going to be joined by Linda Teeter from Stu Benz Senior Services Fund to find out more about what they do, what services they provide, so that you can stay in your home. I think you're going to really find that to be interesting and helpful and useful. So make sure you tune in on Monday for that. And one last thing, because I have 20 seconds here, and I don't want to forget. Today is the 9th annual Law Enforcement Memorial Service being held at 6 p.m. at Steuben County Sheriff's Office Memorial Park. That's 7007 Rumsey Street Extension in Bath. And as it says, they're held to commemorate the officers, deputies, and troopers who made the ultimate sacrifice for the safety of their communities in Steuben County and the 6 surrounding counties. This is a very moving and touching event, so keep that in mind. There'll be speakers like Congressman Langworthy, former Congressman Joe Sempolinski, Assemblyman Phil Palmisano, Assemblywoman Burns, Steuben Legislative Chair Kelly Fitzpatrick, and of course Sheriff Allard. The sheriff's this is tough. The Sheriff's Office Honor Guard will present the colors. A Hammond Sports student will sing the national anthem. Taps will be played. A 21-gun salute will be offered by the Corning American Legion and VFW Ceremonial Drill Team. And Amazing Grace will be played on the bagpipes. So the public is invited and encouraged to attend to support the families and communities of those who protect us all. All right, folks, first hour, frankly speaking, is done. And by the way, I hope to see everybody there. The first hour is done, and I hope to see everybody in the second hour. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox. We'll be right back. Hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom, and we are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Got a lot of people walking by. It's a beautiful morning out. We've got a lot of waves coming in as well. So thank you for joining us, and thank you to everybody who joined us for the first hour. We were talking about Joe Biden claiming he has executive privilege against anyone finding out on just how addled he is, says James Bovard. It is interesting because what this does, let's face it, at the end of the day, is creates inevitable conspiracy theories. And that's what and I'm going to talk about what James Bovard said in a moment. But the New York Post editorial board said, what is on these tapes? Biden cited executive privilege. Now, these are the tapes with Robert Hur, who said that he seemed like an old man, that he had issues, right? It says, bizarre, the transcript of the Hur interview got released weeks ago, so the audio can't reveal any hard information. So what is Biden afraid of Americans hearing? And the White House is blaming it on Merrick Garland, saying he suggested that they do this. Biden's kibosh came after Garland refused to turn the tapes over and asked the White House to step in, claiming production of these recordings to the committees would raise an unacceptable risk of undermining the department's ability to conduct similar high-profile criminal investigations. That's transparent baloney. Again, we're only talking about the audio version, not the words themselves. So Garland was only offering Biden a pretext for preventing the tape's release without appearing too self-serving. White House counsel Ed Siskel's reasoning is even more bewildering. He says House Republicans' likely goal is to chop the tapes up, distort them, and use them for partisan political purposes. So anyone with any recording of any politician, what makes this audio so special? Why would he believe that this audio would be chopped up? That there's some conspiracy theory that Republicans are waiting to chomp at the bit to add what? Silence in it, cut it up. I mean, that's nonsensical, his excuse. We're left guessing what is there, and that means there's more evidence of what Americans see every time Biden speaks without a teleprompter. He's a confused man in marked cognitive decline. But the stone wall raises suspicion that the tapes are somehow worse, more damning enough for Garland to risk being charged with contempt of Congress. Stop feeding the inevitable conspiracy theories, Mr. President. Release the tapes and let Americans come to their own conclusions. And that kind of ties in what they're saying there with what people, and again, this goes with the bar that I'm scared about, lowering the bar so low, but what we're going to see during the debates. We know without a teleprompter, without a lot of rehearsal, a lot of practice, like we saw with the State of the Union, Biden does have these issues. That the only conclusion you can jump to with these tapes is that would prove it, because their excuses are nonsensical. Their stonewalling of this just creates more conspiracy, enough that Garland was willing to be held in contempt. And that's, I think, very telling for people that may not have been prone to even caring about hearing these tapes. But James Bovard said, the Biden White House is proclaiming a new prerogative for presidents. They may suppress any evidence of their unfitness for office, especially, as we saw from the 1%, it could be used for political reasons. Wait, are they that bad they would be used for political reasons? Isn't that your next jumping to a conclusion, right? Okay, you're saying they could be used against his political foes, or his political foes could use them against him. Doesn't that mean that they're bad? Anyway, the battle over 5 hours of audio tapes could settle President Biden's fate or pave the way for perpetual presidential secrecy in coming years. In August of 2022, Biden's FBI launched a massive, heavily publicized raid on Trump's Mar-a-Lago headquarters to seize classified documents that the former president allegedly illegally possessed. After classified documents were also discovered in several of President Biden's homes and offices, Attorney General Merrick Garland appointed special counsel Robert Hur to investigate. Hur recommended no prosecution because jurors would see Biden as an elderly man with a poor memory. So this, again, also proved the lawfare against Trump and not against Biden, of course. So this was working on so many levels. Now, the White House vehemently attacked Hur for this statement. 3 months ago, the official White House spokesman for oversight and obstruction, Ian Sams, boasted that Biden never asserted executive privilege during the Hur investigation because he was transparent and he had nothing to hide. Well, except for the mumbling and meandering. Last month, the Justice Department claimed that disclosing those audio tapes would be a clearly unwarranted invasion of personal privacy. But Biden was not conscripted into the presidency, and no one forced him to illegally retain classified documents scattered over sites in multiple states. Congressional Republicans threatened to hold Garland in contempt for refusing to disclose the audio tapes. The White House on Thursday formally invoked executive privilege to block access to the tapes. Biden is playing the get out of democracy free card. Bad motives by Republicans justify the cover-up, White House counsel Ed Siskel claims. Siskel claims that the GOP had no legitimate need for the audio recordings, as if everyone is obliged to take the White House's word that Biden is the smartest man in Washington. Well, you are. That's what they are told. The media is telling you. That just take them at their word. It's just like with the economy. No, never mind about inflation. Things are really good. The economy's great under Biden. Never mind what happens when you go to the grocery store. Same idea. Trust us. Biden is the smartest, most competent, healthiest man in Washington. Siskel asserted that if Republicans received the audio files, they would chop them up, which is such an old thing to say. It's not how you edit audio anymore, but chop them up, distort them, and use them for partisan political purposes and manipulate them for potential political gain is inappropriate. Chopped? Will Biden's brain trust propose revising the First Amendment to prohibit any editing of politicians' statements? Does Cisco believe that Biden's re-election campaign deserves veto power over any outtake from the president? That's what they're presenting here. And I think that's what they will try to pursue. The controversy is exposing Washingtonians' self-worship. When a reporter asked Garland on Thursday morning why he asked Biden to declare executive privilege, Garland responded, "The Justice Department is a fundamental institution of our democracy. I will protect this building and its people." Now, did Garland forget his oath of office, touted the Constitution, not 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue? Which one's more important to Garland? For the White House, the issue is not whether Biden is capable of fulfilling the heavy duties of his job. Instead, the issue is that the American people are unfit to judge the president's verbal pratfalls and incoherence. Instead of a bizarre executive privilege claim, the White House should have invoked the Americans with Disabilities Act and threatened to sue any voter for illegal prejudice against the mentally handicapped. This James Bovard. This is not my point. I want to hear your comments on it. Are Americans heading for another Alice in Wonderland election? Votes first, evidence later. Will the Biden-Hur tapes become the 2024 equivalent of the cover-up of Hunter Biden's laptop in the 2020 election? Will there be any number of cynics' bingo cards that won't be covered by Election Day? I thought that was a great way of putting it. Now, Trump calls this his Trump campaign called this asserting executive privilege a double standard. Crooked Joe Biden and his feeble administration have politicized the key constitutional tenet of executive privilege, denying it to their political opponents while aggressively trying to use it to run political cover for Crooked Joe. So that ties in with the debates. And we talked about this extensively yesterday, and I would love to hear your opinion on it. With the debates, when we talk about what we've all seen, the cognitive decline, and we don't say this in some type of laughing fashion, it's unfortunate, but the cognitive decline of President Biden, we see it with our own eyes, again, telling us, never mind what your eyes tell you. Never mind, there's nothing to see here, right? Well, that's one of the many reasons why we saw the rules, I believe, for the presidential debate. Biden, I think, the more I've thought about it over the last more than 24 hours, I do think Trump called Biden's bluff, meaning that Biden thought if we put these unrealistic rules in there, and we have it at CNN where the moderator is Jake Tapper, Trump's going to say no, he doesn't agree to maybe one or all of the rules, and then they can say, see, he doesn't want to debate. Nope, he said anytime, anywhere, but he's a coward. You know, you can almost see it already because Biden's trying to act tough on Trump, saying, "Take the debate, go ahead, pal, make my day," or however he worded it. It's that weird, do it or don't, that weird tough talk from the president. But so I think that Trump, realizing that the cards have been stacked against him in so many instances, through the lawfare, and so you can go through so many examples, that you know what, why not? You set all the rules. I said anytime, anywhere, any place. You set all the rules because the system's been out to get me anyway. Might as well beat this one more time. Same with the court case. I had some friends, again, not political-minded friends at all, who I would say perhaps maybe don't vote, but if they were to vote, I would speculate, vote Democrat, saying that they believe this trial just makes Trump look tougher, makes him look more willing to fight the system. And I thought that was very interesting. So the same goes here. Okay, you wanna stack the deck against me? Well, it's happened before, and I beat it before. The Post has a piece about how Trump can use the debate to put Joe Biden away, but then Julian Zelzer of CNN says why Biden's eager to debate Trump. And then we have a few other comments on it. Then we're going to get to the hush money trial and much more. So we've got a little bit more to talk about. Right around 7:20-ish, we're going to be talking with the Salvation Army of Corning. So stay with us. We need to take this short break. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Thank you for everybody who made a comment there about the technical issue. We're all back. We'll be fine here on out, I believe. So thank you for the comments. Keep them coming in. You see the number on the bottom of the screen. If you are new to the program, you can reach out anytime about any of the issues that we put forth on the broadcast. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio, and coming up in the next segment, it'll be the Steuben Senior Services Fund interview, as we'll talk with the Salvation Army of Corning. Looking forward to that. And I don't want to give too much away of the interview because it was pre-recorded. So we sometimes say Friday or tomorrow instead of Today. It is actually today, and that is Donut Day. And what Donut Day is, you can come. It's a part of history, and you'll hear about it. Part of Salvation Army's history. But you can come to Centerway from 11 to 1, get a free donut, free cup of coffee. Just say hi. That's all you got to do. Maybe after your lunch, you can get a little free dessert from the good folks at the Salvation Army. You'll hear all about it in the next segment. So the Post is suggesting that this is Donald Trump's chance, this debate coming up on June 27th, to basically end any question about who will win. But before I tell you that, Julian Zelzer has a different opinion. Julian Zelzer from CNN tells us why Biden is eager to debate Trump. Now, would you say there's an eagerness there, or it was, hey, if you follow all these guidelines, then we'll do it? Because I'm still not, I know, I'm still not convinced it'll totally happen. But if it does, it's really with a lot of rules in Biden's favor, right? A lot of rules. So Julian Zelzer says, as we know, they both accepted the invitation for the debate. Biden, who was first to accept the invitation, posted, "I've received and accepted an invitation from CNN for debate on June 27th. Over to you, Donald. As you said, anywhere, anytime, any place." So he's trying to poke Trump on this, really hoping, I think, in the long run, that Trump would not accept with all the stacked rules. The June date, much earlier in the general election cycle than usual, is a reflection of the growing importance of early voting. Hold on, I got a call real quick. And later, Wednesday morning, both men said they also accepted an invitation from ABC for that second debate on September 10th. For the first time in decades, whether there would even be debates had been uncertain. Again, I am making it fully clear. I will owe everyone an apology if after June 27th, on the morning of June 28th, when we talk about the debate, if there was the debate, I will owe everybody an apology, because I was one of the people that speculated that it would not happen. I thought there was too many outs for the Biden administration and too much downside for Biden. All Biden had to say, his campaign, is that they could not give him the platform. They were not going to let him spew his lies. And that was that. And they would have got away with it. But now, if he does now again, I know I said it yesterday, if they set the bar so low, which I think they're doing already, not just the Trump campaign, not just Republicans. I think the media is already willingly setting the bar very, very low, so that it's not going to take much for Biden to get out there and be declared the best debate performance of his career when he needed it most. Again, you can write the headlines, you can write the article yourself today on May 17th. You could write the article for the June 27th debate already. Biden seems confident as well. Let's take a step back. This, again, Julian Zelzer. Trump refused to debate his opponents in the 5 GOP debates. Yeah, I mean, they keep saying that like he was scared. That was such a smart political move. I mean, it wasn't a refuse out of scaredness. It was a refusal out of what did he have to gain. He preferred to get his airtime on social media, etc. Biden seems confident as well. After all, he took the stage twice in 2020 and won. So Julian Zelzer is quoting the president without quoting him. That's what Joe Biden originally said. Hey, I beat you twice. I can do it again. Go ahead, make my day. So Julian Zelzer, with this, impartiality of a journalist. And now, in full disclosure, he is a political analyst. But just saying, it's a known fact that Biden won both debates in 2020. He wants to do it again. Trump seems to be tempted to go mano a mano and show that he is better fit to be commander-in-chief. Although challengers are frequently more eager to debate than incumbents, Biden is likely feeling more pressure than usual to perform on the national stage, given concerns within the Democrat Party and among moderates about his age, and polls showing he is trailing Trump in some swing states. 5 swing states, I think? Moreover, while incumbent presidents normally enjoy far more attention than those seeking to replace them, in this election, the fact that Trump is a former president and one who is able to command ongoing media attention makes the debates more important for Biden. Well, one of the reasons Biden's not getting more coverage, that's because of Biden. They're not giving the interviews because of concerns when he goes off teleprompter. That's why they have to really coddle him in so many ways. giving questions ahead of time. And I know we had a question yesterday from a viewer. Do you believe CNN will give him questions ahead of time? I don't know. If history shows us anything, that is a potential issue. Donna Brazile giving questions to Hillary Clinton ahead of the Bernie Sanders. I think it was considered town hall or debate or whatever they called it. So yeah, it would not surprise me. I don't see a good scenario for Biden, and I don't want to set the bar low either, but I don't see a good scenario for Biden where he's going in there just knowing generically what the questions may be or what they should be, because he has to have everything like we saw with the State of the Union, so scripted out, even to his side notes, the kind of the asides of what he wants to say or the digs he wants to take at Trump. Now, all of those will be well rehearsed, well practiced, probably on note cards on the podium. Hey, if he mentions this, say this, bring up the trial, bring up, so there'll be that he can set in stone. But the questions themselves and the way Trump goes after his opponents could be interesting. Now, one of the rules, of course, is a microphone will shut off after a time limit, is what I'm assuming. If it's not a time limit, if it's up to someone in the booth or something like that, then you'll see that manipulated. You'll see Biden given more time and Trump cut off instantly within the second. So that one is, well, I would say it's as concerning, maybe a little more concerning even than not having the audience there. But I'll continue with what Julian Zelzer said. The debates will not take place according to the schedule preferred by the Commission on Presidential Debates, as we know, because both sides believe that that was biased. Now, he goes through the history, and it gets kind of old, the history of all the debates, which they do so frequently in these articles. I think it's to fill up 3 pages. When voters feel they know the two candidates so well, as in the case in 2024, watching them on stage will offer a reality check about what is real and what is fake, and remind voters of what each man would be like in the second term. There are also many questions still to be settled, including the specific rules that will be used since the commission won't set them, and whether third-party candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. should participate. CNN rules include that he must reach 15% in the polls, a figure he has not reached. As ugly as the contest is likely to be, it is better for the nation that we have debates. For the moment, at least, it will give crucial information about the candidates to the voters who won't only have to rely on the world of surrogates, influencers, and social media commentators to make sense of what's going on. See, I think they're a little excited about this, those in the media, not just CNN, those in the media, because they see an opportunity of saying, okay, we can say Biden did great no matter what. We can show that there is no cognitive decline, because this is exactly what they did after the State of the Union. We can show it in a way that makes Trump look unhinged, that he looks like he's the one that's struggling in the polls, that he's the one that really needs this more than ever. So I think they're getting a little ahead of themselves, a little almost cocky, that this is going to be good, that we're going to make this work. We're going to manipulate this in a way that works. And maybe at the end of the day, they'll be successful, because all it takes is a few headlines, no matter how the debate looks, to say that Biden had the performance of his life when he needed it the most. Voters throughout the country recognizing that the cognitive decline has been overhyped by President and his campaign and Republican surrogates. And last night he proved that he has 4 more easy years ahead, something like that. I mean, you can see the writing on the wall. So I think they're getting excited, just like when they, on the opposite side of the coin, when they used to love showing the rallies so much because they thought it was a clown show. They thought it was a circus. They thought it was hilarious. And then it started resonating with people. So they always get a little bit in the media. There's one thing you should know. The media people are very full of themselves, very into themselves. I think they're more powerful, more important than they are. So that's what we'll see in this case, the kind of the cockiness, the arrogance of they think they already have a way to help Biden in the polls. But we got to take a break because we are running late and we've got the Salvation Army recording coming in. So stay with us. Full disclosure, the interview was pre-taped yesterday. So everything we were talking about in this interview with the Salvation Army is taking place today when we talk about Donut Day. Okay? Just to clarify that in case there's a couple little screw-ups on what day we were supposed to mention. So stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox, broadcasting from the Hesselson studio. And this is the Steuben Senior Services Fund section of our program. It's still a mouthful. Joining us in the studio, we have Major Nita and Marlene. Thanks so much for being on the program.
Thank you for having us.
There's a lot to talk about. I think most people are wondering about the outfit, but we're going to save that. We're going to keep people hooked, okay? So first, if one of you would tell us the history of Donut Days for the Salvation Army.
Well, Donut Days is a result of World War I and II, where the Salvation Army lassies were allowed to make donuts. They would pray and sing with the soldiers, and they would go in the trenches. They would make these donuts in a big cauldron, fry them, and then they would go into the trenches with the men and give them donuts. So they were active even through the firing of artillery and everything else. So they did this in World War I and II.
Wow, that must have made that so special for the soldiers at
It
the
was
time.
very special. We hear that the donuts were not that great, but they just appreciated the love
Yes, of course. And is this something that's celebrated every year?
every year.
And what are the celebrations that the Salvation Army takes
Well,
part in?
there's a National Donut Day that's June 1st.
Okay.
But we're making our Friday, May 17th Donut Day
That's
in
right.
coordination with our 140th anniversary of the Salvation Army in Corning.
And I want to emphasize that 140 years in Corning. That's amazing.
Yes.
Is that pretty high up there when it comes to years, or is that typical?
That's typical
Is it?
from 1884 in February to 2024, and that is typical. That's typical. There are some corps that have even longer, 150.
Wow. And how are some of the ways, and we're going to talk about Donut Day in just a moment, but how are some of the ways that you're celebrating 140 years?
Well, the first kickoff is this week during Salvation Army Week
Yeah.
on Friday, right in Centerway. We have our donut girl who's next to me. She'll be giving out donuts. We'll be giving out 60 boxes of donuts along with recipes and some other tips on how to make donuts and the history of Donut Day as well.
And I should emphasize, because people are watching this right now and they see this really bright out and sunny, this is pre-recorded. So when people are going to hear it, this is actually Friday. Today is Donut Day.
That's right.
So as you're getting
Today
ready to
is
work,
Donut Day.
today is the day that you can pick up your donuts. So
And coffee.
And coffee. Wow.
Yes.
And that's right at Centerway.
Yes,
starting
11
at
to
noon.
1.
11 to 1.
11
so
to 1.
go grab some lunch. It's going to be beautiful. See everybody. Say hi to the Donut Lassie. Now tell us about
Yes.
the outfit. Is that the typical outfit?
It is. It is taken from World War I. It is a donated outfit, and of course, if you fit the outfit, you're the one that plays a
That's
role.
You're
right.
stuck every year from here on
So,
out.
the helmet, I will tell you, is very, very heavy, and I guess that the men used to use it for everything. They used
Food,
it for
shaving.
food, shaving.
No kidding.
Yeah, carrying water. So-
Multitask. Yeah, it makes
Yeah.
sense. You only had so much space to
Yeah.
carry things into war. and
Sometimes
the
they
like.
even wore a dress
Really?
with just the scarf around it, a long dress.
yeah, yeah.
And they had a Army identification on each collar.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Well, so is it comfortable overall?
For the most part, it is all wool. So, wool,
So you're hoping it's
I
not
know.
too hot.
Itchy wool.
I am, and so I'd have to say it's heavy, but wool is breathable.
Sure.
So I am praying.
Talk about the
for-
silver lining.
Yes.
Huh?
I
Always
know,
finding the
yes.
I
silver
know.
lining.
I'm just praying for 40-degree weather.
It's
tomorrow,
73
Sunday.
tomorrow.
Yeah, I know.
I know.
73.
So again, when you're watching this, that is today, Friday, from 11 to 1. So you'll know if it's going to be hot or not by the time you watch this. So what kind of donuts will you be giving away?
Glazed sour cream, I believe.
Yes, they are. They're
Yes.
glazed sour cream.
A little sweeter than what they made because
Yeah.
they just made the bare essential donuts.
But what were they when they were bare essential? I mean, they must have been very basic
Very
back in
basic.
World War I specifically.
Flour, sugar, water,
Yeah.
a little bit of yeast.
You had to
Fried-
dip up
fried
in the
lard.
coffee. Yeah.
They were
Fried in lard.
Oh, interesting.
And we have the recipe. So.
We do. We will be
Have
handing
you-
out the recipe.
I'm sure you've tried it before.
Yes, I tried the original. It's a
I,
little bit
I,
like
make, I
cardboard.
make them every week.
Every week.
I do.
That's why you have the coffee
like
to dip it
cardboard.
in. It totally makes sense. Well, this is such a fun idea. This is the first time, at least in recent memory, that you've been down in Centerway handing out donuts, though,
Yes.
right? Especially in
Yes.
that outfit. I don't remember seeing the outfit
No,
before.
we borrowed the outfit.
Yeah.
We wanted to be as authentic as possible.
And it's absolutely free. Just come over and say hi. It's from 11 to 1 today in Centerway. I want to talk a little bit more about the Salvation Army in general. We were talking off the air, and I know it's been a tough year for everybody when it comes to the need. And it's also been tough in general for numerous organizations for donations. What is the Salvation Army's outlook, would you say?
Well, Salvation Army Week makes it a great time to help everybody to refocus on what our mission and ministry is about. And the goal is to have people recognize us as not only community service, but also as a part of the Christian church. And with all the various programs that we offer, we do need funding for that, for our
Of course.
after-school program, for summer day camp, for sending kids to overnight camp, and for doing just youth ministry, creative arts, musical instruction.
And how can someone help or donate?
Well, we were hoping that this year, because of our 140th anniversary, that people would consider giving anywhere from $14 to $140
Perfect.
and up.
Yeah. So come on in today at Centerway, get a donut, and maybe if you're so inclined to give a little money for the Salvation Army,
That would be
because
great.
I think, and I know we talked about it during the telethon, and I've talked about it on the show numerous times with you and others. Sometimes people almost take for granted in a way how much the Salvation Army does for our community.
Yes.
And it's, you work so hard behind the scenes that you're not worried about public relations. You're worried about getting the job done. And
Yes.
sometimes that's a detriment for
Right,
people
right.
realizing how much you do.
Right. And this year, with the 140th anniversary, we're trying to rebrand ourselves so that people have a clearer understanding about what we're doing, not only the rent, the utilities, but the other part, the life skill development programs that we offer, for the youth and for the adults. So we're hoping this week,
Yeah.
Salvation Army Week, helps us with that.
And will there be a big celebration for the 140th here in Corning?
Yes, on September 8th at the Nassau Civic Center, we'll be having a chicken barbecue with auction and games. It's going to be a great time.
What a great way to celebrate.
Yes.
And like make donations or just to say thank you. There's so many people in the community that have been so positively affected throughout their life by the Salvation Army.
Yes.
Just stop by and say thanks or say hi and make new friends or talk to old friends.
Yeah, absolutely. We'd appreciate that.
So before we go, what do you say to everybody today? Remember going to get donuts down in Centerway. What should they say to you when they come up in your outfit?
Hey, I do. I invite you to come on down and say, hey there, Donut Lassie.
Can I get a picture? Can I get a picture?
And absolutely, there will be photo opportunities, and I'll get you a donut.
Perfect.
Free donuts.
11 to 1, free donuts,
Yes.
coffee, and just a great conversation. Thanks so much for being on the show, and stay warm. I shouldn't say that to you.
Thank you for having us.
We'll do it again soon?
Appreciate
All
you.
right. All right. We're definitely going to talk before September 8th.
Okay, great.
All right.
Thank
We'll
you.
be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us. And we are back with Frankly Speaking. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you to Major Anita Stewart and Marlene Swingle from the Salvation Army of Corning for being a guest this morning on the program. They do such amazing work at the Salvation Army of Corning. And in full disclosure, I'm sure I've mentioned this before during the telethon, so it's not a secret, but I'm the chairman of the board, advisory board. And when you see the numbers and how many people they help at the Salvation Army, it is amazing. It's heartbreaking that they're down this year from a kettle campaign and the like. So we want to do all we can for them, and I look forward to promoting the upcoming September 8th fundraiser as well. The picnic, 140th year here in Corning. So come out, everybody, today in Centerway right down on Market Street is where the clock tower is. Stop in, get a free donut, talk to them, say they did a great job on Frankly Speaking this morning, because they did. All right, a couple comments from viewers while we were talking with the Salvation Army. CNN will definitely have Joe Biden's back. I agree. This one I'm going to, I hope you don't mind, to the viewer, I'm going to censor it a little bit or reword it a little bit. Every time Biden speaks, we see he can't put together a cohesive sentence. So they would have to fill him full of, we'll say, what Hunter used to enjoy to keep him coherent for 2 hours. Next comment. Frank, I have recently started, this is all different different viewers. Frank, I've recently started listening more to CNN and MSNBC, well, MSDNC, and realized the error of my ways. Okay, all right, Ken. Instead of a past president that led our country to energy dominance, low inflation, conservative justices, low unemployment, and respect around the world, I now want an elderly man with a poor memory to continue to lead us to higher energy costs, high inflation, packing the courts, and being a laughingstock around the world. Well, welcome to the party, Ken. I'm sure CNN and MSDNC, as you put here, I'm sure they are grateful, and it seems as if their hours of work to push that agenda has paid off. So I'm sure that they're glad to hear that. And a final comment, and this is not final for the whole show, but final for this round of comments. And this is the one. These are the ones I always like to read the most. Good morning, Frank. Good morning. As a lifelong resident of Corning, we are lucky to have you for a voice of the people. I'm a natural gas voter and always vote for energy independence. Well, thank you very much for watching, and thank you for the very kind and nice words. And it's good to have a natural gas voter out there voting for energy independence. It keeps us safe. it's a tough state to live in with those beliefs, I'm sure, as we all feel the same way. But it's good to know. And I'm glad when we have like Assemblyman Phil Palmisano on talking about New York State energy policy. So I appreciate that. I mentioned I would talk about this earlier on, and this is how Donald Trump can use the debates, according to the New York Post, to put Joe Biden away. In deciding to debate Trump, President Biden tacitly admitted he's losing right now. This is a Hail Mary gambit to turn the race around. That is a good point. To want to debate so early, to accept the debates so early, it is kind of a showing. It's like before when he got an early endorsement from the unions. I can't remember which union specifically. And that's supposed to be something you save until later. The kind of feel good in the Democrat eyes story that gets you some media attention, not that early on. Now we're saying, we want to debate, admitting, essentially, that his numbers are down. Trump needs to figure out how to steal the deal. That means practicing so he can keep his cool and pull off a performance more like the second 2020 Biden-Trump face-off than the first. That's fair, though, according to CNN, New York Post editorial board, according to CNN, Biden won both, hands down. Continuing, Biden's goal will be to goad Trump into shooting himself in the foot on things like abortion and early voting. That's a very good point as well. Also, that's why they don't want the audience, because they don't want kind of the reaction that Trump gets, because that does help Trump. It's very much like a laugh track on a sitcom. It sometimes tells you when something's funny. In this case, when you hear the audience and they see after Trump says something, it gets your attention, right? But I'll continue. On the first, Trump plainly has his eye on the ball. As he rightly boasted at his Wildwood rally, quote, "We also got an abortion out of the federal government and back to the states. So it's now up to the will of the people in each state," which is where it has to remain unless and until the public comes to some clear national consensus that's unlikely to appear for the foreseeable future. And yes, some states will be more conservatives and others will be more liberal. He specifically flagged the surprisingly progressive choices of Ohio and Kansas voters, going as far as saying, but that's the way it is. And it's something that we should cherish. America needs a break from needless culture wars, and Trump wants a truce, at least at the national level. That's basically Nikki Haley's position, and likely a main reason she's still drawing major votes in meaningless GOP primaries weeks after she called it quits. But Trump may not see the hidden agenda in Biden's democracy offensive. It's not just about tempting the ex-president into bogging down, relitigating the 2020 vote, but also bid to cover him to keep, to have him keep dumping on early voting, and so depress his own vote total in November. Yeah, Biden would love to see him badmouth early voting. That's why Republicans have been saying, we had it with Joe Semplinsky recently, to vote early, because Democrats like the early voting going their way. So he's hoping in this debate he can also get Trump to talk about 2020 all over again and those type of things. And that, I do think, hurts Trump in the long run. I don't think that helps him with voters on the fence. But continuing. Sorry, every state and local level GOP operative knows they've got to maximize their early vote totals. The Democrats certainly are, and it helped them a lot in 2022 as well as 2020. Don't obsess over some abstract principle. Play to win by the rules as they are, or you might as well be Hillary Clinton, belatedly whining about the Electoral College after she lost. I think that's a fair point, but I'd love to hear your opinion. As our own Michael Goodwin notes, Biden's endless disasters mean the race is now Trump's to lose. If he instead plays his cards calmly and wisely, he could wind up with a crushing win. So I thought that was an interesting piece, and I would love to hear your take. Did you see what Jimmy Fallon said? I'm not a big Jimmy Fallon fan. I know we all have our issues with him. But did you see why his theory, why Biden announced the debates? Jimmy Fallon said on his Tonight Show, quote, "Biden and Trump will meet June 27th on CNN. And one of Biden's debate conditions was not having any audience. So that explains why it's on CNN." I thought that was pretty clever. So you got to give credit where credit is due. We got to take a short break. Stay with us. Keep those comments coming in. We're wrapping things up. We only got a couple breaks, a couple more minutes, about 15 minutes left here on Frankly Speaking. So we'll be right back after this. Broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. That's our beautiful view of Market Street. where today, from 11 to 1, the Salvation Army will be handing out free donuts and coffee right in Centerway Square where the clock tower is. So I hope that everybody can make it out. Tim Rosenberger says District Attorney Alvin Bragg lets New York City crime run rampant as he pursues this empty case against Trump. Headline, chasing Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg's vanity project of a trial against former President Trump comes at a high cost for New Yorkers. The time and expense Bragg has devoted to the flimsiest cobweb Trump charges are indefensible given how many dangerous crimes go unprosecuted. Criminals roam the streets with little fear of facing jail time. I'd highly recommend this article. You can find it at the New York Post. He goes through the numbers, a little too wonky to get into here on the program. But he talks about all the victims that, and I've mentioned this numerous times on the program, all the victims that didn't need to be victims if we were tough on crimes. These are just some of the citizens, and he gives specifics, that are denied justice, even as a politically motivated and costly trial proceeds. Bragg is so desperate to get Trump that he has abandoned the New Yorkers he is elected to serve. Now, the CNN did the takeaways from day 18 of the Trump hush money trial. I'm not going to go through that, but CNN's Stephen Collinson, again, showing that CNN has turned into the Biden website, essentially. But he does say Michael Cohen gives Donald Trump his best day in hush money trial so far. When you say best day, what could we, again, maybe someone explain to us what the crime is, what we're actually looking at here? Donald Trump finally had a good day in court. That's how he starts it. The presumptive GOP nominee has often seemed embarrassed and infuriated by his first criminal trial, which has featured salacious exposés of his personal life and details of his alleged attempts to cover it up. But on Thursday, he got to savor his former fixer-turned-enemy, Michael Cohen, wobbling on the stand under a fearsome cross-examination. Cohen appeared to be tripped up over an account of a call he'd previously said under oath was to discuss Trump's hush money statement to Stormy Daniels. It emerged under questioning on Thursday that, at least to begin with, the topic of the call was about another matter entirely. And he goes through, I'm not going to give all the pivotal moment, goes through, and they're trying to equate it. A couple people have done this to a boxing match. Norman Eisen, also CNN, said Trump's defense landed some punches, but Michael Cohen kept standing. The hero. Also, the media loves Michael Cohen. Unbelievable, isn't it? After a rocky start for former President Trump's counsel on Tuesday, the continuation of testimony from the Manhattan criminal trial's star witness Thursday substantially improved in their favor. We finally saw stretches of the defense cross-examination of Michael Cohen that were powerful and effective. Like in a heavyweight boxing match, blows are landed and the defense scored points. But in my view, Cohen stayed on his feet. He was rocked by one blow on the chin, but there was no knockout punch. Michael Cohen walks on water all of a sudden, according to CNN. Today was not sufficient, he wraps up by saying, to reverse the proof beyond a reasonable doubt that has been established over the weeks of the case in chief. The defense needed a knockout punch because they were behind on points and didn't get one, but it's a closer case. Again, a case of what? What? Yeah, I'm not going to go through all of it. We talked about it so extensively. It's amazing that you have quote-unquote legal experts at CNN and other far-left outlets that are presenting this as an actual important trial. One that so many have admitted, Fareed Zakaria from CNN himself saying that, well, this wouldn't be happening if it weren't Trump. This would not be a trial. People like Governor Hochul and others saying, well, don't worry, businessmen, don't worry. This is just because of Trump. This is not going to be typical. Don't worry. CNN's Ely Honing was asked, I just wonder how we got to the point and what you think you've seen in a lot of these things developing in court. You've seen a lot of trials. Have you ever seen anything like this, kind of twist like this? Honing said, I don't think I've ever seen a star cooperating witness get his knees chopped out quite as clearly and dramatically as what just happened with Michael Cohen. I've certainly seen very effective cross-examinations of cooperating witnesses. I've seen aspects of their story cut into and called into question. But this goes to the heart of the allegation here, that phone call on October 24th. And it looks to the jury and to Anderson Cooper and Kara Scannell, Judge George Grasso, who are all in the courthouse, that was a devastating moment. We are at an interesting moment right now. 25 minutes away from the end of the court date, which ends at 4 today. I believe that Todd Blanche is going to keep his cross going. So when they come back into court for 5 days, and on Monday, if he finds new stuff in the next 4 days, he will have the ability to continue the cross. Yes, today, former President Trump, will be at Barron's graduation, as you know, so trial does not begin again until Monday. CNN's Anderson Cooper saying similar. I would absolutely doubt Michael Cohen's testimony if I were a juror. Throughout the day, Michael Cohen was cornered. When cornered, he found himself in a corner. He does have a pattern of suddenly not understanding the question being asked, or seemingly one could say buying time to try to figure out how he wants to answer. But he definitely suddenly starts to have Todd Blanche repeat questions like, I don't quite understand what you mean. I'm confused by that question. By this time, Michael Cohen was cornered in what appears to be a lie, I think, to many in the room. You could tell the importance of the moment, and everyone in the courtroom could tell, if you were unaware of it, the clicking of every reporter in the room's typewriters. It was like a crescendo because the drama of the moment was so clear to everybody. All right, we got a couple of last-minute things on this. Wrap up today's discussion on the program. Get your last-minute comments in, and we're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back. Last break of the Friday edition of Frankly Speaking. It's 7:53. Stay with us. And we are back, wrapping up discussion here on Frankly Speaking as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. A really good opinion piece by Greg Jarrett at Fox if you want to peruse it. Defense guts brags star witness Cohen for doing what he does best. And he wraps up by saying, perhaps it is Alvin Bragg and his Confederates who should be on trial, not Donald Trump. Jonathan Turley also has a piece of Fox, 3 reasons why jury might acquit president. They are being played as chumps. 1, the prosecutors. First, there are the prosecutors. Alvin Bragg, originally, as did his predecessor, reject this ridiculous legal theory and further stated that he could not imagine ever bringing a case where he could call Trump's Michael Cohen, let alone take him the entirety of a prosecution. Continuing, Bragg, it goes into too much, but the Judge Juan Merchant, has been criticized not only because he's a political donor to President Biden, but his daughter is a high-ranking Democrat political operative who's raised millions in campaigns against Trump and the GOP. Merchant, however, was not randomly selected. He was specifically selected for the case due to his handling of an earlier Trump-related case and one after. He has Steve Bannon after, correct? I mean, it's talk about fishy, reeking to high heaven. And the star witness, Michael Cohen's checkered history as a convicted, disbarred serial perjurer, is well known. Representative Dan Goldman is under fire after disclosing that I have met with Cohen a number of times to prepare him. Wow. The fix is in. What will be interesting is how the jury will react when, after casting its verdict, the members learn of these undisclosed associations. This entire production was constructed for the benefit to get them to convict Trump, despite the absence of any clear crime or direct evidence. They were the marks, and like a good grift, the prosecutors were counting that their desire for a Trump conviction would blind them to the con. That's what they're hoping for. And will the jury, at the end of the day, if they decide wrongly in this, will they realize that they were used? Bragg, Colangelo, and others may be wrong. Putting aside the chance that Judge Merchant could summon up the courage to end this case before it goes to jury, the grift may have been a bit too obvious. New Yorkers are a curious breed. Yes, they overwhelmingly hate Trump, but they also universally hate being treated like chumps. When they get this case, they just might look around the table and decide that they are the suckers in a crooked game. Trump is going to attend Barron's graduation from Oxbridge Academy today. The graduation ceremony is private. Did we have everything else? Boy, there's a lot of people, a lot of Trump supporters, politicians at the trial. Yesterday included Andy Biggs, Lauren Boebert, Michael Cloud, Eli Crane, Matt Gaetz, Bob Good, Diane Harshbarger, and Paulina Luna, Ralph Norman, Andy Ogles, and Mike Waltz. Oh, we had a couple New York State issues. The Times Union editorial board said, act now for lasting ethics fix. Oh, by the way, first $3.6 million in New York taxpayer money going to the campaign matching fund. That's headed out the door. So $3.6 million of your hard-earned money going to politicians, whether or not you agree with them. Have a great weekend, everyone. I hope to see you down in Corning in Centerway Square today from 11 to 1 to get that free donut from the Salvation Army. But I do hope that you have a great weekend, fun, safe weekend. Also hope to see you at the memorial today at 6 with Sheriff Allard. All right, last time. I hope you have a great weekend. Stay safe, and we'll be back Monday morning starting at 6 a.m. for Frankly Speaking, only on WYDC TV. Big Fox. We'll see you then.